I'm surprised you could make it to the reunion after dropping out the college halfway through, she said. I'm living with my boyfriend on the 20th floor of the high-rise apartment, she mentioned. Well then. As I started to walk away, she suddenly exclaimed, Hey! Where are you going? My house is this way. Pointing to a building in the opposite direction. No, I'm going home. My apartment is on the top floor here, I replied. My name is Tucker Tate. Currently, I run my own business. Honestly, I never thought I would be able to manage a business. Ever since I was young, I dreamed of owning my own company. But I thought it was impossible. This belief stemmed from my father's expectations. My father was a hospital director. So, he had always told me since I was young that he had wanted me to take over his hospital. Honestly, I never wanted to become a doctor. When I was small, I enjoyed studying because it made my parents happy. However, as I grew up and went through middle and high school, I began to question it. Did I really want to be a doctor? No, that's not it. I didn't want to take over my father's business, nor did I want to become a doctor. But my father was not easily persuaded, and he insisted that I had to go to a medical school. When I really felt it wasn't right for me in the school, I was told I could pursue my own interests. Reluctantly, I enrolled in a medical school. But eventually, I dropped out, and that has led me to where I am today. And why I suddenly started talking about this was because I never thought you'd show up at the reunion, she remarked. Despite dropping out halfway through, it's great to see you at the reunion, she said. The woman spoke to me was Maya. She was my girlfriend during college. It's been a while, Maya. During college, I was dating her. When I discussed dropping out because I couldn't keep up with the studies, she dismissed me saying, just because you can't keep up, you're quitting? Honestly, our university is quite challenging. Are you just running away? She never really listened to my concerns. After discussing my desire to leave, she told me she had found someone else and broke up with me. Breaking up made it easier for me to leave college for good. It's nice to see everyone after so long. How have you all been? Where are you working now? She was amicable to ask like that to everyone, except me. Maya was always like that during college as well. She was very friendly with teachers and classmates. But it was different whenever she spoke to me. She always spoke in a condescending tone to me. I thought maybe she had changed when I saw her at the reunion, but she hadn't really. What have you been doing? Tell me. What did you do after quitting medical school? I found what I really wanted to do and started my own company. It took quite some time, but it's very fulfilling. As I spoke, she smirked as if I had said something amusing. I was waiting for her next remark, thinking that I hadn't intended to make an interesting remark. And then? What do you mean and then? I asked her back. I had just answered her initial question, but I was puzzled by what she wanted more. What did she mean by and then? And just how much are you making now? My thought froze for a moment since I didn't expect to be asked about my earnings. You probably have just one employee, right? That's called a sole proprietorship, you know. You don't say you've launched a company. With freelancing and all these days, are you calling that a startup? You're really out of touch. She remarked, seemingly unable to believe I had started a business. Or was she believing me? But she was just assuming it was a small venture. It's not just me. I have a substantial number of employees and a stable annual income. Of course, I can't discuss my salary here. So, how many employees do you have? More than 100? Of course. It's not just 100, it's over 1,000, I responded. I answered that and Maya bursted out laughing with delight. Her laugh hadn't changed since our student days. Before we dated, she looked so charming, that changed once we became a couple. It turned out Maya always looked down on me. Even while we were together, she would talk down about me to our friends of our club in college, claiming she was doing me a favor by dating me. If you're going to lie, at least be more skillful about it. Lies that obvious only embarrass you, you know? I'm not lying. I even have a business card. Do you want one? Oh, stop it. Don't try to give me your contact information. Maya glared at me with utter disdain. I had only mentioned handing her a business card, not exchanging contact information. Did she equate giving out a business card with exchanging contact details? It's not like that at all. I just want you to believe me. Come on. Anyone can make a business card these days. Don't think you can fool me with that, she dismissed. She seemed determined not to acknowledge my entrepreneurial success. That was understandable, since she had always considered me beneath her, especially after I dropped out of college. She couldn't easily accept that someone she regarded as inferior now managed a company with over 1,000 employees. I had struggled to reach this point. I had discussed it countless times with my family and faced many challenges. But I am here today through encounters with a lot of people. So it was frustrating to be dismissed with the simple words like, "That's impossible." If you doubt me that much, check out my website. You'll see my name as the CEO. I'm sorry, but I don't have time to waste on you, she retorted. Who started this argument in the first place? I wanted to argue back. I don't have time to indulge your lies or any intention of believing them. Just dreaming is fine, but we're adults now, so get your act together, she said as she walked away to join other classmates. Maya was dressed in branded attire, suggesting she led a comfortable life. It was disappointing to hear such things at the reunion I had looked forward to. Nevertheless, I enjoyed catching up with other friends. Reminiscing about who had gotten married and who had children made me feel as if we were back in our student days. As the reunion reached its midpoint, Maya approached me again. Maya, will you listen to my boyfriend's story? He's really cool. She started on her own. My boyfriend works for a major company and he seems so busy. His boss is a great guy and he wants to contribute to the company. I love that he's dedicated to his company, but I wish he wouldn't make me feel so lonely, she shared. Is that so? Tucker, you probably don't have to worry about being too busy with work, she said with a sideways glance and a sneer. Why did she always seem to have it out for me? I'm currently working at a hospital, she continued. She had graduated from the medical school and was working at a fairly large hospital. Look at this. My boyfriend gave me this necklace. Isn't it cute? Guess how much it cost? Maya's necklace was petite and very cute, suggesting that the person who chose it had excellent taste. Considering the market price of this brand, it's probably around $3,000, right? When I guessed the price, Maya looked at me with surprise. Did I say something odd? However, she quickly laughed. Correct. But are you really spending your lonely nights researching brands you can't afford? What do you mean by that? You are pitiful with no money and no girlfriend. You might as well not go to the store at all. Just looking without buying is called window shopping, she taunted. I can afford it. And I do have a girlfriend, I retorted. Maya looked at me as if she couldn't believe it. I'd been with my girlfriend for 2 years now. She never complains about my busy schedule and is always supportive, such a kind woman. But she does scold me if I don't get enough sleep or skip meals. She's usually gentle, but she doesn't hesitate to call me out if I'm too engrossed in work and not paying attention to my surroundings. You have a girlfriend? That must be a lie. Stop lying though, I can understand you haven't been with anyone since we broke up. It was a miracle to date with a beauty like me in your life, right? Maya confidently declared. Her unyielding confidence was almost laughable. Certainly, Maya was beautiful. But living with someone is about more than just looks, character matters. My girlfriend wrapped my heart in kindness, a truly beautiful woman. It didn't bother me that Maya looked down on me, but denying the existence of my girlfriend crossed a line. Thinking this, I spoke up. Maya, you've definitely become prettier. But my girlfriend is also very beautiful and cute. There's no way someone like you could be dating such a woman. Are you talking about some woman from your dreams? Don't be rude. She's real. I even have a photo. Want to see it? I don't want to waste my time on your fantasies. Didn't I say that before? I couldn't just stay silent since I was pushed to this point. I was about to pull out my phone to show Maya a photo of my girlfriend. But then I hesitated. Was there really any need to prove her existence like this? It didn't seem right to show off her photo just to brag. I started to think so. It would be enough that I know the goodness and beauty of my girlfriend as her boyfriend. There was no need to convince Maya. With that thought, I put my phone back in my bag. Maya probably assumed she was right in her accusations after say what I did. See, I knew she didn't exist. You can't keep a lie hidden for long. If you say so, take a look at this. I pulled out my phone again and showed the lock screen to her, which had a picture of my girlfriend. There was my girlfriend beaming with a full smile. Her name is Sarah Norton. She smiled like a flower in full bloom. Maya's face froze at the moment she saw the lock screen. She's really your girlfriend? Not your sister or something? You know I don't have any siblings. She's genuinely my girlfriend, I affirmed. Maya looked at my phone screen as if it were something distasteful. I feel like I've seen her somewhere before. Maya mused skeptically. Though I doubted they knew each other. Since I feel like I've seen her before, you grabbed some random photo off the internet, right? Maybe she's an actress? I'll check it out later. Maya conjectured. As Maya tried to take a photo, I stopped her. Hey! Don't take photos without permission. You haven't asked her, right? She scoffed, got nervous, huh? Must be a lie then. It seemed she found it amusing that I refused to let her take a picture. She looked at me triumphantly. She was convinced that the photo must have been pulled from the internet. If you won't believe me, then let's just drop it, I said. I got fed up of arguing with her and looked away. Suddenly, Maya raised her voice. Hey everyone! How about we have the after party at my place? Everyone was momentarily taken aback by her proposal. Actually, I live with my boyfriend in a high-rise apartment, she added. The crowd cheered hearing this. They were thrilled since alcohol was involved. There were some reactions from around such as, sounds awesome. I want to see the high-rise. Or, I'm definitely going for the after party. I'm living with my boyfriend on the 20th floor of a high-rise. This made the classmates even more excited. You must come too. You probably don't have work tomorrow, right? She told me. I'm not coming. Come on, tell us more about your girlfriend. My place is right here. She insisted that and showed me her address. The address was very close to where I lived. Rather than awkwardly refusing here, I figured I'd attend the after party and find an excuse to leave early. Maybe I'd say I was feeling unwell as soon as I got near home. I just nodded silently while I thought Maya wouldn't listen to anything I said at this point. As we headed to Maya's house, she kept bragging about her boyfriend. My boyfriend is really capable and handsome. He buys me anything I want, she boasted. What she was talking was only her boyfriend's looks and money. Didn't you like him because of his personality? I asked. That's none of your business. Besides, dating you is just for fun. She replied what I unexpected. I dated you just to make my real crush jealous. I wanted him to see and get jealous, she said. Did she think that would hurt me? It was years ago. There was nothing to fuss over at that time. Maya continued, visibly pleased with herself. Thanks to you, my crush who got jealous confessed to me. Oh, but just so you know, I'm not dating this man now. My current boyfriend was a patient at my hospital. He was so handsome and charming. I thought it would be great to date him. And after seeing how dedicated I was at nursing, he fell for me, she claimed. Okay, that's great. Honestly, I had no interest in Maya's stories. I just wanted to get back home to Sarah who was waiting for me. Home was only about 10 minutes away. I guessed I would have to play along with her stories to keep Maya satisfied. Honestly, his personality is too kind, not really my type. But he's handsome, and his salary is high, so I'm definitely not letting him go. She declared. Good for you. I hope you find happiness, I said. What's with that patronizing tone? As if you have a girlfriend, she scoffed. I told you, I have a girlfriend. I even showed you a photo. Oh, that one? Just some random internet pic, right? Talking with Maya was truly exhausting. I just wanted to get home. Every second was too long for me. If I get another invitation to a reunion, I think I'll pass. Dealing with such snide remarks isn't worth it. I'd rather have dinner with Sarah. He's really rich and lives on the 20th floor of a high-rise. Isn't that crazy? Yeah, I can understand since live in a high-rise too. You are lying again. Maya seemed determined to call me a liar, no matter what I said. I'd not mind what she wanted to do. Ever since I mentioned I have a boyfriend, you suddenly say you have a girlfriend, and when I say my boyfriend is rich, you claim you run a company. And after hearing I'm living in a high-rise, suddenly you said you're doing that too. I'm not trying to copy you, I'm just stating facts. If they sound like lies to you, there's nothing more I can say. Indeed, our stories did have a lot in common. I was not imitating her, but you still have feelings for me, don't you? What? That's right. You're just trying to impress me because you're still hung up on me, right? That is troublesome. No, that's a misunderstanding. Before I could finish, Maya raised her voice again. Everyone, we've arrived. Mine is on the 20th floor of this building. I thought I was finally free and said, well then, and started to walk away. But then she exclaimed, hey! Where are you going? My place is this way. Pointing in the exact opposite direction of the building I had started walking toward. No, I'm going home because my place is on the top floor here. I started walking towards the building opposite to the one Maya pointed out. The crowd around us began to murmur. That's not true, you're living in this building, is that? What's the point of lying? Such lies will be quickly exposed. That high-rise, isn't it better than mine? Maybe, but I don't know how much your rent is, Maya. Your apartment's rent is double mine. Maya yelled, and I knew this fact for the first time. And then other classmates started to chime in. This place is really famous, right? And I heard on TV it costs a lot. I've always prioritized work. So I never cared much about where I lived, just that it was close to work and reasonably spacious. It turned out the high-rise I've lived in was quite renowned. Stop lying. Go inside then. I'm going home anyway, are you coming with me? Maya nodded as if it were obvious. If you're lying, you're going to be really embarrassed. She seemed determined not to believe me until she saw me enter my home. I sighed and walked into the entrance. I greeted the security as usual. Maya's face showed disbelief when she saw this. As I was about to use my key to enter, she rushed up, saying, "Is this really your place?" I'd been telling you, it is. I'm going home now. Wait. Explain yourself. Maya got angry while saying so. Enough already. I've been telling the truth from the start. Besides, aren't your friends waiting for you? You are going to host the after-party at your place, right? You have to come too. My girlfriend is waiting for me at home. I need to go back to her. She heard this and it seemed like something clicked for Maya. Let's invite your girlfriend and go to the after-party together. There was no way I want that. I didn't want my girlfriend to see me like this. And it was just rude to spring a party invitation on her suddenly. Especially they didn't know each other. When I was about to decline thinking that, I heard someone call Tucker from behind Maya. Sarah. I found my girlfriend Sarah standing there. Welcome back. Is she your friend? You had a reunion today, right? It seems Sarah had just been to the nearby convenience store to buy some drinks. She held a bag with likely containing some snacks. I just wanted something sweet, got some ice cream and drinks, she said with a sweet smile. My heart felt at ease by looking at her. Suddenly, Maya approached Sarah. We're having an after-party at my place now. Would you like to join? You're Tucker's girlfriend, right? Aren't you curious about his past? Maya ignored me and spoke directly to Sarah. She looked quite bewildered. Hey! Stop it. Can't you see she's uncomfortable? It would be great if you could join us for the after-party, Maya said with forcing a smile. It's too sudden to invite her. Really? I'd love to go. Sarah responded with a smile. And it surprised me. There you go. I'll show you to my place, Maya said. Thank you. And the two of them started walking together. Are you sure about this, Sarah? I'd like to talk and join, if that's okay? I won't be in the way. Her willingness was unexpected, since Sarah usually didn't like such spontaneous plans. It's all right. Since she's saying so, Maya added. I couldn't understand what Maya was up to, but my questions were answered just a few minutes later. Actually, I used to date Tucker. He's not really anything special, kind of dull, you know? Why would you be with someone like him? Don't waste your time. She started saying things like that. He even claimed he dropped out of college and runs a company. It's not a lie. He really does run his own company. Really? Are you sure you're not being deceived? Be careful, there are a lot of scary, lying men out there. Ha! That's funny. I'll be careful. You really should be. It's surprising how many lying men there are around here. She was implying that I was one of those lying men. Even though she had confirmed that I do have a girlfriend and live in a high-rise, she still didn't believe I run a company. But you know, it's not just men who can be scary. Women can be too, so we all have to be careful, right? Yes, there are lots of lying women out there too. I have a brother, and I always make sure to look out for him so he doesn't get deceived. Sarah began to say and engaged in the conversation with a twist. You have a brother? Yes. Sarah is beautiful, so I bet your brother is really handsome too. What's his salary like? His salary? I'm not sure exactly, but I think it's quite high. Plus, he's handsome and has a great personality. Introduce him to me, will you? Even though she had been bragging about her boyfriend all this time, it was surprising she could say something like that. I was heading to Maya's house with a look of disbelief. The elevator continued to rise, and soon we would be at the 20th floor. I really didn't want to go, but if Sarah was enthusiastic about it, then it was a different story. Sarah was talking a lot today. She was usually quite reserved. And Maya was clearly looking down on me. I thought Sarah would snap back at her. But she's been unusually quiet. We arrived at Maya's place. Hi, I'm back. Sarah. Please keep it a secret that I asked about your brother earlier. Maya whispered to Sarah. But as soon as Sarah entered the room. I'm sorry, keeping that a secret might be difficult. Sarah said with a smile to Maya. And then. Tucker. Sawyer. Hi, Sawyer. Why are you here, Tucker? That should be my line. Sawyer, you've been living so close to my place? Maya's mouth agape in shock as our conversation unfolded. Do you know him? He's the CEO of the company I work for. He always gives me great helps. Thank you, Sawyer's sales performance is top-notch. That's not true at all. A CEO? That's a lie, right? Because my boyfriend works for a really big company. It makes $500 million a year, right? Hey, Sawyer. $500 million. That's our CEO. I've been enjoying working in your company, Tucker. Sawyer said with a mischievous grin. I had no idea that one of my employees, Sawyer, was dating Maya. And that Sawyer lived so close by. Then there was another problem. Bro, long time no see. I didn't know you moved here. I just moved here recently and hadn't told you yet. I was planning to invite you over soon. Your brother? What does that mean? A pale-faced Maya pointed at Sarah. She's my sister. And that's her boyfriend, Tucker. You're kidding. She was your sister. Were you deceiving me by knowing all along? For Maya, this situation must be overwhelmingly awful. The boyfriend she boasted about was an employee at my company. And she had been complaining about me to her boyfriend's sister. I had only seen him in photos, so I just thought he looked familiar. But when we got here and I saw my brother, I realized. That stuff I said earlier was just a joke, don't take it seriously. I didn't mean it, it was the alcohol talking. Maya desperately tried to make excuses. It seemed that the classmates somewhat understood the situation, and it led to an uncomfortable atmosphere. Maya was desperately babbling away. She probably didn't want Sawyer to hear about the earlier conversation. That's right. I was drunk. Your boyfriend really is a wonderful person. Maya suddenly said, completely reversing her attitude. What's wrong with you? You look pale. Weren't you looking down on my boyfriend? Saying that someone who dropped out of college couldn't possibly work properly. My boyfriend is working hard managing his company. Sarah said, and her face showed anger instead of smiles. It was just a little joke, right? Right, Tucker? We're good friends, aren't we? Maya tried to make eye contact, pleading with her eyes to go along with her. I've been putting up with it because you're Tuck's classmate. But it's different if you're my brother's girlfriend. Sarah's firm voice echoes through the room. What? Sawyer. This person only looks at your appearance and money. She even asked me to introduce her to a handsome man. And also said that Tuck couldn't work properly because he dropped out of college, Sarah added. Maya's earlier bravado was gone, and she began to tremble. What do you mean? Sawyer's voice sounded angry. I spoke up so that the atmosphere couldn't get any worse. Let's calm down for now. Remember, everyone else is here too. Sorry. Tuck. You're right. Sarah said, looking down apologetically as I gently patted her head. I'm sorry for being rude. I had no idea you worked for such a major company. The way you say it sounds like it would be okay to look down on someone if they didn't work for a major company, he noted. That's not what I meant. Sarah and Sawyer's eyes were filled with anger. In fact, I was the one who headhunted Sawyer. At his previous company, he wasn't advancing as expected. But the reason for his lack of progress was clear. His boss was taking all the credit for his work. Realizing this, I headhunted Sawyer and brought him into my company. That was why Sawyer regarded me almost like an older brother, truly bonding with me. And it was Sawyer who introduced me to his sister, Sarah. Sarah's eyes were sparkling with excitement at the first time we met. I've heard all about you from my brother, she had said, her liking for me evident from the start. Energetic and somewhat reckless, the more time I spent with Sarah, the more I was drawn to her, and it made me confess my feelings. That was why Sawyer and Sarah are very close to me. I'm sorry. I had no idea you were the CEO of the company. I said so many disrespectful things, that. I don't mind. It's true I dropped out of college, I reassured her. That's kind of you. You've always been so kind. Maya seemingly relieved by my support. Maya looked at me with a relieved and happy expression. I don't really mind, but you're not suitable for my precious friend, I finally said. What? Throughout the reunion, you've been boasting about your boyfriend, focusing solely on his wealth and appearance. Honestly, I wouldn't be able to sincerely congratulate you two if you got married. I can't see myself getting along with you. Why would you say something like that? Let's discuss this later. Everyone, sorry for the odd vibe. Sawyer quickly shifted into work mode and began entertaining the other reunion members. Initially, the atmosphere was indescribable, but as the alcohol flowed, the room soon livened up. Except for one person. Maya apologized numerous times afterwards, but apologies alone couldn't change what had happened. Try to talk it out. We're heading home now. Let's go, Tuck. Sarah said with a joyful smile, gripping my hand and leading me towards the entrance. I heard a sound like something collapsing behind us, but I didn't look back. Since then, I've heard that Maya broke up with her boyfriend and was kicked out of the high-rise. Afterwards, she blocked all her classmates' contacts and no one could reach her. With such a high pride, Maya probably couldn't bear it. I hope she finds true love somewhere. Love that isn't based on appearances or money. Maybe then, Maya might change. Tuck. I'm sorry for causing such a scene. Honestly, I feel relieved. Thank you. I was thinking of enduring if she was just one of your classmates, but it's different when she's my brother's girlfriend, right? Plus, she kept making disparaging remarks about you. It's always like this, you get angry before me, so I never have to. I'll always get angry for you, Tuck. I'm seeing Sarah laugh so happily. And I decided to propose to her soon. What is this place? It's so rural, it's not even funny. Too rural? I don't think it's that bad. I was born and raised in New York, you know? And you're taking me to this remote place? Calling it remote is definitely an exaggeration. I married you because I thought you were on a fast track to success. I don't know what you did wrong, but getting demoted to such a rural area. It's not a demotion. I've been entrusted with an important role in the company's expansion. No excuses. I don't need a husband who's been banished to the sticks. I want a divorce. 3 years later. Daniel? Ha? Standing there was my ex-wife, Brenda. And next to her, it was Brenda's affair partner, whom I had only seen in photos and videos. My name is Daniel. Right after I started working, I dated a woman. Her name was Brenda. She was a lively woman who spoke her mind clearly. She seemed straightforward and a bit strong-willed. But I admired her for that. Even in a male-dominated environment, she always expressed her opinions firmly. To me, she shone brightly. Our relationship gradually deepened, and before I knew it, we started dating. We were office sweethearts, and although people whispered behind our backs, "Don't worry about that. Just think of it as jealousy. We haven't done anything wrong, right?" She said that with a big smile, and she still seemed to sparkle somehow. Our relationship lasted for 2 years, and then I successfully proposed and we got married. Then, she brought up something. "I'm thinking of quitting my job." Eh? Are you planning to retire upon marriage? That's right. I don't think this job suits me anymore. I want to work part-time or maybe a casual job and take it easy at home. Honestly, we can manage with just your income, right? I want to quit. What do you think? That's fine. Don't worry about money. I'm on a career track and I think I can get promoted again next year. So, feel free to do what you want. Thanks. I will then. Daniel, you graduated from a great university and you're really good at your job. You're well regarded by your boss. If this continues, you might really climb the ladder quickly. That might be an exaggeration. But, on the inside, I thought so too. Work was fun, and I was genuinely happy when sales increased. There's a saying about finding one's true calling, and I truly believe that my job is just that for me. And so, she quit her job. I was proud of her as everyone celebrated her departure from the company. Half a year later, I was offered a transfer. The new location was at the headquarters, still in New York. When I told her, she exclaimed, "You're finally working at the headquarters. That means you're definitely on the fast track now. Keep earning more and more. Oh, by the way, our wedding anniversary is next month. How about we go on a trip abroad?" I can't just take leave next month. How about 3 months from now? For our anniversary, let's go to a fancy restaurant instead. Ah. If you can't do next month, I'm going to go on a trip abroad with my friends. What? I want to go soon. I can't wait 3 months. I'll buy you lots of souvenirs. Wait a minute. Weren't we supposed to go out together for our anniversary? Why are you planning to go with your friends? I just thought it would be nice if we could go together on our anniversary. If you can't make it, I'll just go on a trip abroad with my friends. You know. I don't want to say this, but haven't you been a bit reckless with money lately? Ha? It's not like I have spent all our savings, and you're making a decent amount each month, aren't you? Be a little more generous. What happened to working part-time or doing a casual job? You quit the part-time job, and now you're not working at all, right? It's just my salary. So, I'd really prefer you not to waste money. Don't you know what marital assets means? We're married, you know? Your money is mine too. I haven't spent a fortune. And you're making enough each month. Give me a break. If it were for things we both could use, I wouldn't mind so much. But it's all about your brand name bags, clothes, and accessories. And your trips are always with your family or friends, Brenda. If you're going to spend money, I wish it included activities that we could both enjoy together. You are busy with work right now. I'm trying not to get in your way. Plus, you tell me to get a job. But do you understand how tough it is to work part-time or casual jobs? It's not like being a full-time employee, you're treated like a pawn. It's really uncomfortable and stressful. But I want to save for our future too, maybe for when we have kids. Kids? I don't really think about having kids. Is that so? Before we got married, you talked about wanting 2 kids, so I just assumed. People change their minds. I've given it a lot of thought, and if we had kids, it would just mean more unnecessary expenses. I think it's better if we don't have kids and spend the money on ourselves instead. Anyway, just keep that in mind that I'll be going on that trip abroad with my friends next month. After quitting her job, she seemed to lose the sparkle I had once seen in her. No. Actually, it might have been that she only seemed to sparkle because that's what I wanted to believe. I thought I liked her straightforwardness and openness, but now, even that aspect of her personality was beginning to annoy me. Spending money freely and not working. When it comes to household chores, those are neglected as well. If money must be spent, I'd at least like it to be on outings or shopping trips we could enjoy together. But she goes on shopping sprees by herself, travels with friends, and squanders money. I was growing tired of her behavior. I pretended not to notice these feelings and started my new job at the headquarters. I've been transferred here as of today. My name is Daniel. Pleased to meet you all. I'm your supervisor and mentor, Susan. Feel free to ask me if you have any questions. Thank you. I'm looking forward to working with you. Working at the headquarters, I was even more devoted to my job than before. Boosting sales was enjoyable, and I learned a lot from my colleagues and bosses. Going to work became the highlight of my day, and returning home felt increasingly dreary. The reason was my wife, Brenda. Back from drinking again? It's almost midnight. Any complaints? It doesn't matter if I come home early or late, you're never around anyway. You're married to your job, aren't you? So I just went out for drinks with friends. Got a problem with that? It's not about complaining, but if you keep drinking late into the night so often, it's genuinely worrying. Maybe you should set a limit on how often you go out each week? What? Is this about money again? I'm not talking about money. You're just upset because if I go out drinking, it drains your savings, right? Despite earning a lot, you're so petty. I'm really just worried about you. If you're so worried, why don't you come home earlier? Have you ever thought about how I feel, being alone at home? But you always tell me not to come home early, instead, to work more for promotions, to earn overtime pay. That's why I'm always working late. I want you to earn more money. What you're saying makes no sense. I'm tired now. Let's talk about this some other time. Hey, wait. She had started going out to drink frequently at night. She wasn't like that before. Worried, I tried to come home earlier, but she pushed me to work overtime, to work harder for promotions, and discouraged me from coming home early. I was at a loss, unsure how to deal with her who changed so much. But, by seriously discussing these issues daily, she gradually stopped going out at night. I thought this would bring her back to the way she used to be. That's what I believed. Until that came up. After a year and a half of working at the headquarters, Susan called me. Did you call for me? There's something I need to discuss. Could you come to the conference room with me? Yes, sure. I'd like to hear your opinion. Yes? What about? What would you do if you were transferred again? Actually, I couldn't believe what followed those words. This decision would be significant for me. As I quietly listened to her, I finally spoke up. Well, Then, I went home to discuss it with my wife. Could you sit down? I have something important to discuss. What? Just sit down, please. Ugh. Fine, I'm sitting. What is it? Actually, there's a possibility of another transfer. Another transfer? Wait a minute, you've only been at the headquarters for just over a year, right? And another transfer now? Yes, but this transfer is significant. But you're currently working at the headquarters, right? A transfer from there means you're off the career track. No. That's not it. Calm down and listen. Until now, our company has only had offices in major cities like New York, Los Angeles, and Boston. They've decided to expand into new locations for business growth. Where to? It must be a decent-sized place, right? How far from New York? It's going to be about 620 miles away. What? Wait a minute. A transfer to such a place is unimaginable. You mean off the career track and into the boonies? It's not exactly a countryside, but compared to New York, well, it's not exactly urban. Do you have a rough idea of the place? Show me. I pointed to the general location on my smartphone's map app. What is this place? It's too rural, it's not even funny. Too rural? I don't think it's that bad. Sure, compared to New York, there might not be as many convenience stores or supermarkets. But the countryside has its charms. I was born and raised in New York, you know? You plan to take me to such a remote place. Calling it remote is definitely an exaggeration. Do you even understand why we got married? What are you talking about? I married you because I thought you were on a career track to success in a major company. A secure future, right? That's why I married you. So you didn't marry me because you love me? That makes it sound like you were only after my money. It's not like that, it is that. Given my age, I thought it was about time to get married, and if I was going to marry, I wanted someone younger and on a career track. You weren't bad looking and I believed in a secure future with you, but this is unbelievable. That's my line. When you got the job at headquarters, I was truly happy. I thought my judgment was right. But I don't know what you've done to be sent to the sticks. It's not a demotion. I've been entrusted with an important role in the business expansion. It's not about me making any mistakes. No excuses. I don't need a husband who's been demoted to the sticks. I want a divorce. So be it. Understood. Oh. You're surprisingly reasonable. I had a feeling this conversation might end up this way. Then I brought up another topic. You've been having an affair, haven't you? What? What are you talking about? The way you've been going out at night and frequently traveling raised my suspicions. I had a detective agency look into it. And there are plenty of photos and videos as evidence. It's fine if you want a divorce, but you'll have to pay alimony. What? Was that your last trump card? You thought mentioning alimony would stop me from divorcing you? Too bad. I can pay the alimony. Consider it payoff money. I have all those unnecessary brand items bought with your money, and my boyfriend works for a major company. He can pay the alimony in one lump sum. I see. Just make sure it's paid properly then. How easily humans can change left me more astonished than angry. Apparently, her affair partner worked for a major company and seemed financially secure. She was unapologetic about her affair, flippantly called it payoff money. That marked the end of our marriage. But I had no regrets. Continuing life with a woman who was reckless with money and unfaithful was out of the question. That was an obvious decision. And so, I readily agreed to the transfer. Really? You'll take the offer? Thank you. We'll start making formal arrangements. Oh, I forgot to mention. I'll be going with you to train you thoroughly. Really? I was worried about moving to a place with strangers. It's reassuring to know you'll be there. Top in sales and still worried? Did you manage to talk things through with your wife? We'll handle the housing arrangements. So if you have any specific requests. Actually, about that. I'm getting divorced. I haven't told anyone at the company yet, and I'd appreciate it if you could keep it a secret for now. So, a family-sized home isn't necessary, a singles type will do. Oh, I didn't know. I'm sorry for prying. No need to apologize. I was planning to tell you eventually. I hope this transfer isn't the cause, is it? She looked concerned as she peered at me. I wondered why she seemed so worried. The transfer isn't entirely unrelated, but there were various issues before that. I'm sorry. I never imagined it would lead to this. Why are you apologizing, Susan? When I received this assignment, I recommended you because I believed you would excel in a new environment. But I knew you were married and had a family, so I wanted to discuss it with you first. Thank you for your concern. But really, don't worry. The transfer is hardly related at all. Is that so? Then I'll take your word for it. I have high expectations for you as a subordinate. Yes. Afterward, I busied myself with the preparations for the move and the divorce proceedings. My wife moved out quickly and apparently started living with her affair partner. And the affair partner had paid the alimony in one lump sum. He really must be doing financially well. The smirking smile of Brenda flickered through my mind, and I shook my head. There's no point dwelling on it. I don't regret the divorce, and this was for the best. I moved and threw myself into my new job. The work there was challenging. Unlike before, where a foundation was already set, here I was part of building it from the ground up. It was fun and fulfilling, though often tough. Are you done with work? Want to go for a drink afterward? Yes. I was actually thinking of having a drink today. I'm pretty tired. Recently, Susan and I occasionally went for drinks after work. In a land where I had no family or friends, it was genuinely nice to have someone to drink with. Good job today. Thank you. You really work hard, don't you? People around here are surprised. They say working with you is motivating. Really? I didn't know anyone felt that way around me. Maybe they're too shy to say it? Everyone says seeing you work hard makes them feel like they can't lose. That they have to push themselves harder too. You have a knack for sales, but you also have a charisma that draws people in. Is that so? I'm a bit embarrassed to hear that. Susan, a work-oriented person, rarely gave direct compliments. Seeing her gentle smile, I felt my heart race. Maybe I've loosened up a bit from the drink? I thought being strict with you would make you grow, so I didn't compliment you much. But I do recognize your abilities. I wouldn't have brought you here otherwise. But I'm sorry if it caused trouble for your family. I've been meaning to tell you, but when I brought up the transfer, she said she couldn't come with me to such a place. I kind of expected it. So the divorce was because of this transfer? That's my fault, then. There were issues before that, like reckless spending and her not coming home until late at night. When I investigated, I found out about the affair. She probably didn't want to leave her affair partner. She even said I was being demoted. And claimed she married me for money. I'm actually grateful. If I had stayed at the headquarters, I would never have realized. That's such a shame. A kind person like you isn't easy to find. Really? She smiled at me. Her cheeks have turned pink from the drink. Embarrassed, I took a sip of my drink. From then on, working hard while occasionally drinking with Susan became a joy in my daily life. And before I knew it, 3 years had passed. That day, I had the day off and was at a high-end restaurant. Arriving a bit early, I took my seat and waited for someone. Just then, it happened. A familiar voice called out my name. Is that you, Daniel? See? I knew it was you. Have you come back to New York? Yeah, I have, I replied. Standing there was my ex-wife, Brenda, and beside her, the man I had only seen in photos and videos, her affair partner. Oh, what? Are you staring because of this? The wedding ring. We managed to get married. While you were working so diligently in the countryside. We tied the knot. That's good for you, I responded. Don't you have anything else to say? How does it feel? Abandoned by me, living a miserable life with nothing but your work? Are you even okay coming to such an expensive place? You don't have money, do you? After all, you were demoted and sent to the countryside. I keep telling you, I wasn't demoted. There's no need to lie. You always had too much pride. Brenda's husband smirked beside her. What a vulgar laugh. I thought to myself. Just then, the person I was waiting for arrived at the table. Sorry to keep you waiting. Who are these people? Hey, you can date even though you're a poor man? I don't know who you are, but you should probably break up with him. This man was demoted off the fast track and relegated to do menial work in the countryside. You'd be better off leaving him right now. Cut it out, I interjected. With all due respect, breaking up isn't so simple. Because, you see, we are married. We have no intention of divorcing, and frankly, it's none of your business, right? At those words, Brenda's eyes widened in shock. She had proudly shown off her wedding ring, yet she had failed to notice the ring on my left hand. Yes. In the 3 years since we parted, a lot had changed for me. I had married Susa N. And I had returned to New York. I put my arm around Susan's shoulder and greeted them cheerfully. This is my wife. Any problem with that? I never thought you'd remarry. It must have been tough finding a woman in the countryside. You keep looking down on the countryside, but what's so great about the city? Whatever. You wouldn't understand anyway. Besides, my husband is much wealthier. Right? Pleased to meet you. I'm Tyler, married to Brenda. I don't know what you did, but being dumped by your wife and sent to the countryside must have been tough. I couldn't have endured it. People who cheat aren't worth staying married to, I retorted. Hey, why don't you tell them where you work? They'd be shocked. Daniel's company might be big, but after all, he was sent to the countryside. I bet the salary is not that big. I'd rather not boast, it seems pitiful. But if I must, I work at Company XX. Oh? That company? Susan and I exchanged glances. Misinterpreting our surprise, the two of them laughed joyfully. Susan, who knew about my ex-wife, looked utterly baffled. It felt like her eyes were asking, why did you ever marry someone like that? I awkwardly avoided her gaze. Are you okay working there? Huh? What do you mean? Surprised because it's such a large company? I probably earn 3 times your salary. Please, stop with the sour grapes. Just because your husband can't earn much doesn't mean you should be envious. I'm not saying this out of jealousy. But aren't your company's performances declining? It's well known in our industry. Your turnover rate is skyrocketing, isn't it? I understand how you feel, though. What? You're making stuff up. There's no way your performance is declining, right? Right? Tyler's eyes widened in response to our words. His face expression seemed to ask, how do you know that? Brenda appeared uninformed and flustered. It was well known among us that XX Company, despite being a major corporation, had been gradually declining in performance. Amidst this downturn, an executive scandal came to light. Apparently, there was embezzlement by a senior executive. This caused the company's performance to drop further, and worried employees began leaving one after another. Yet, despite these issues, he boasted proudly. Likely assuming all was well simply because it was a major company, a typical attitude of someone who's just a regular employee. If I were in his position, I'd be worried enough to consider leaving the company. Moreover, in such a state, it would be difficult to brag about the company. Sure, it's a major corporation, but isn't it in quite a challenging situation right now? Put. It's fine. It's a major corporation, it won't go under. Sure, our performance has dipped, but it will bounce back soon. Being a major corporation doesn't mean it can't fail, right? There are numerous precedents. Even if it doesn't go bankrupt, it could end up being absorbed or merged. What? Really? You said there were no problems and that work was going smoothly. Just relax. There's nothing for you to worry about. I've got it under control. Under control? Maybe the reason we can't go on trips lately and you haven't given me any money is because of this. You haven't shown me the bank account either. We're saving properly, right? It's fine. Even if we spend all our money each month, there's the bonus, and we'll start saving properly from now on. Wait, you mean you've been spending all our money each month? What have you been spending on when you earn that much? It's because you keep buying things. Most of my money goes to paying off the credit card bills you rack up. I can't believe this. You told me we had plenty of money and that I could spend it. Were you lying? In the middle of their escalating argument, Susan and I sighed quietly. Could you please go outside if you argue? It's really unpleasant to listen to. We came here to enjoy our meal, not to hear this kind of talk. Are you sure you can even afford to pay for this place? Hey, are you sure? My parents are helping out a bit with some money, so it's fine. Are they sending you money? Look, just keep it between yourselves. You're bothering other people here, and it's not fun to dine like that. Plus, if money's tight, maybe you shouldn't be spending it here? Hearing this, Tyler looked down, embarrassed. Brenda bit her lip, glaring at me. Tyler was younger than me and had a somewhat flashy appearance. I don't mean to judge people by their appearances, but he didn't seem like the type who plans and saves money. Such a man, married to Brenda, who was reckless with money. How their money was being managed. It was clear even without asking. Perhaps embarrassed, the two of them quietly left the restaurant soon after. Who would have thought we'd bump into them here? You had a knack for business, but maybe not so much in choosing partners, huh? Susan pouted a bit as she spoke. Since we started dating, I realized she could get quite jealous. Her pouting was endearing, making me smile. Although she seemed a bit upset at my smile, she couldn't help but smile too. 1 month later, I received this phone call. Hey, do you want to go out for a meal sometime? I have something I want to discuss with you. What? What's going on? We're both married now. Why do we need to meet just the two of us? I want to apologize for some things and I need your advice on something. Advice? Let me guess, you want to borrow money? Well, your husband's company is in trouble, right? I figured that out as soon as you contacted me. Yes, that's right. His company is really in a bad state, and he might have to quit soon. So, could you give back the alimony he paid? Give me a break. That's not up for discussion. Of course, I understand your feelings. But I'm not asking for it to be returned to him. I'm thinking about divorcing him. And I was wondering if we could get back together? Please. I realized after seeing you again that I really loved you. I took advantage of your kindness, and I did terrible things. I want another chance. Please. I have absolutely no feelings left for you. I cannot love you anymore, and I certainly won't betray Susan. But you answered my call. Doesn't that mean you still like me? What are you talking about? I had deleted your contact, so I didn't recognize the number. I was naive. I'll make sure to block you now. Wait a minute. At that moment, Susan snatched the phone from my hand. I hadn't noticed her listening in, but before I knew it, she had come up behind me. Could you please stop bothering my husband? He's too good for someone like you, who only sees money. If you cause him any distress, I will confront you fully. What are you talking about? If you harass or stalk him, I will consult my brother. He's a lawyer, so he can help us if needed. Oh, I'm sorry. I won't contact him anymore. I appreciate that. I have no intention of giving him up, and I certainly won't hand him over to someone who can't appreciate his worth. Please never appear before him again. Yes. I'm sorry. The call was then quietly ended. I immediately set the number to be blocked on my phone. Susan is usually gentle, but she gets strong when she switches to work mode. This time, she was like in her work mode. I'm sorry for acting impulsively. But I've heard about your ex-wife from you, and I couldn't hold back. Thinking about how she made you suffer. I'm really happy you got angry for me. I truly love that about you. Oh, what are you saying? She had angrily defended me. And she was blushing and embarrassed upon hearing straightforward words of affection. Every aspect of her was dear to me, and I strongly felt that I wanted to live the rest of my life with her. Brenda apparently hasn't divorced Tyler. However, he had to quit his job, and their spending habits hadn't changed. The two of them were now drowning in debt and apparently worked from morning till evening. Their jobs hold no fulfillment. Just working to earn money. For them, it must certainly be a humiliation. I cherish the happiness I have now and am determined to continue walking a wonderful life with Susan. My first transfer. I was assigned to my hometown. Surprisingly, my new boss was an old childhood friend. My heart leaped at this reunion after so many years. Her smile was just as I remembered from those days. Seeing that smile even brought back my feelings of first love. But I knew the feelings she hid behind that smile. I'm Scott, 30 years old. After graduating from college, I was hired as a salesperson at a regular company. I managed to do fairly well in sales, and after 8 years, I received my first transfer order. When I heard where I was being transferred, I couldn't help but exclaim. It was a transfer to a branch near my hometown. I left home to go to college and started living alone in the next state over. I had never thought that I'd return home due to a transfer. The night the orders were issued, I immediately called my parents. They sounded happy to hear I was coming back. But they said, "There's no room for you, you know?" I was already aware of that. My parents had demolished our old, dilapidated house a few years ago and moved into an apartment for two. My much older brother had already settled down and built a house in our hometown at that time. When I told my parents that I planned to move into a bachelor apartment near the company, they laughed and said, "Bachelor, huh? It would have been great if you could bring a girlfriend home," they teased me. As usual, I replied, "I'm too busy with work to have time for a relationship," and hung up the phone. Seeing my brother leading a happy married life, I knew they wanted the same happiness for me. And then came my first day of transfer. There's no place like hometown. Just being in the place where I was born and raised, the air felt nostalgically fresh. It was my first time at the transferred company's office, and I looked around curiously as I walked through the building. As I wandered around the sales department floor, someone called out, "Are you Scott?" It was the sales department head, Tucker. I greeted Tucker there and we went into the sales department together. Tucker introduced me and turned to the manager, Mark, and the section chief, Ryan. And as he was introducing, "She is the supervisor," I was taken aback. "Jules." Even though Tucker was still talking, I accidentally exclaimed out loud. "Ah, sorry." I hastily covered my mouth. No wonder I was surprised. The sales department supervisor introduced was Julie, who was my childhood friend Jules. "It's been a while. I'm looking forward to working with you," Jules said with a smile, just as I remembered from long ago. Jules was 3 years older than me and had lived next door until I was in the first year of high school. She moved out to live on her own when she went to college. Since then, we only saw each other occasionally during summer vacations and Christmas. Now, neither of our homes were next to each other anymore. When I went off to college, our family home had to be demolished, and we moved out. The last time I saw Jules was right before we moved out when she had come home for a visit. It was truly a long-awaited reunion, but I recognized her at first glance. Filled with nostalgia and joy. I almost forgot I was at the company. Tucker's voice asking, "Do you know each other?" brought me back to reality. Still exhilarated, I briefly explained to Tucker that Jules was my childhood friend. Tucker was also surprised by such a coincidence. "Just make sure you don't get too casual. But I guess Julie will handle it fine." "I'm counting on you," he said. Tucker left me in Jules's care and then departed. I immediately got started on my work. For a while, Julie, would be working with me. First, she showed me around my desk area, the department, and we toured the different floors of the company. And in between moving around, we made some small talk. Jules laughed, remembering the moment we had first seen each other earlier. Jules had calmly greeted me with, "It's been a while," but internally, she was surprised. "I thought there might be someone with the same name, but I never imagined it would actually be you, Scott," she said. I need to be careful not to accidentally call her Jules. Even though we hadn't seen each other for a long time, I've been calling her Jules since before I could even remember. It's such a natural nickname that it just comes out. "Hey, how are your parents? Are they still living in the old house?" As I traced back through my childhood memories, the faces of Jules's parents suddenly came to mind. "Yeah," Jules replied, but her expression clouded over. "But my mom isn't around anymore. Now, it's just my dad living in that house," she said. I was shocked to hear that her mother had passed away. Because her mother, I remembered, was always so lively and full of energy. But I was somewhat relieved to hear that her father was doing well. Even though Jules and I are childhood friends, at the company, it's a supervisor-subordinate relationship. As a supervisor, Jules efficiently handles her work, and the term career woman suits her well. Yet, her caring demeanor and her bright smile when interacting with people haven't changed since those days. Though she seems even more radiant now than before. While I do respect her as a supervisor, I must admit, I feel a bit giddy because, honestly, Jules was my first love. Jules was adorable ever since she was a child. With a small face and big eyes, she was always smiling. Her smile, kind nature, and caring, sisterly demeanor made her popular with everyone, regardless of gender. That hasn't changed even now as an adult. It makes sense that she's in a leadership position. The only thing that has changed is that she has grown even more beautiful as an adult. The forgotten feelings of my first love were slightly tickled. It's rare not to be asked questions about whether was Julie always as beautiful, by a colleague who learned she was my childhood friend. It seems Jules is quite popular among the male employees. I've even heard from long-term employees, she's been popular since she joined the company. But apparently, winning Jules over has proven to be a tough challenge. She's so cute but seems to have no interest in men. Someone sighed after being turned down for a date on a weekend. Well, I'll keep this conversation a secret from Jules. I hadn't thought there were any bad rumors, but knowing she's well liked by everyone put me at ease. Then on one Monday, during the morning assembly, I noticed Jules was absent. When I checked with Tucker, he mentioned that she had called in just before work hours to say she was taking the day off due to severe dizziness. Worried, I sent her a message asking, "Are you okay?" Though she didn't reply immediately, she eventually responded with, "Yes, thank you." Still concerned, I called Jules after work. "Hello?" I heard Jules's faint voice on the other end. When I asked how are you feeling, she said she felt too ill to get up. Jules's apartment was near the company, just like mine. I knew it was within walking distance. I told her I'd bring some drinks and easy-to-eat snacks and asked for her apartment number before heading over immediately. When I arrived at the apartment and rang the intercom, there was no response, even after several attempts. Considering she had mentioned she couldn't get up, I thought she might be asleep, and was about to leave the items at the doorstep when a bad feeling stopped me. I tentatively tried the doorknob and found it unlocked. That's when I opened the door. "Jules!" I called out to her in a panic. She was leaning against the wall near the entrance, looking pale and in pain. After my call, she had managed to get to the door and unlock it. She said the dizziness started the night before. Suddenly, she had been struck by severe vertigo and collapsed. She thought it had subsided a bit, but she was still feeling dizzy. I tried to help Jules to her bed, but her complexion was so poor, and she was so weak that she could hardly walk. I immediately called an ambulance. I accompanied her to the hospital. After an examination, she was suspected of having Meniere's disease. Given her poor condition, Jules was admitted to the hospital for further tests. When it came time to fill out the hospital admission forms, they asked me to contact her family. But Jules said, I didn't want to worry my father, and asked me not to tell him. From her expression, I sensed there was a reason behind it, and when I asked, it seemed she also wanted to spare Uncle the trouble of coming to the hospital because he was currently having trouble with his legs. Thinking it would cause less worry if he heard from me rather than getting a call from the hospital, I contacted him myself. He was shaken to hear she was admitted, but was relieved when I told him I was with her. He seemed to already know that I had transferred to the same company as Jules and asked me please take care of various things, including work matters. Considering his physical condition, I told him I would do as much as I could and gave him my phone number to ensure he could contact me anytime. The next day, after work, I visited Jules, and her complexion looked better than the day before. She still didn't have the strength to sit up, but she felt a bit more settled. I wonder if Dad is okay. Despite her own discomfort, Jules was constantly worried about her father, wondering if he had eaten or how he was managing his laundry. Since I had heard about her father's bad leg the day before, and she was so worried about him, I asked, is he really in such a tough spot? Quietly, Jules said, yeah. And continued, I didn't want to worry him too much. As she explained the situation, her mother had passed away 4 years ago due to cancer. By the time it was discovered, it had already metastasized throughout her body, and rather than aggressive treatment, she chose palliative care. At the time, Jules had been appointed as a project leader and was on a long business trip out of state. When she learned of her illness, Jules had considered consulting with her company to return home. However, both of her parents opposed this. Because Jules had just been given her first opportunity to lead a project. "Your dream is also my dream," her mother had insisted strongly, so Jules decided against returning home. Towards the end, her father took a 2-month leave from work to care for her. Even so, Jules was able to be there at the end. She ended up taking about a week off, but the project leader role remained hers, and her supervisor covered for her during her absence. About a month later, the project ended. And Jules returned from her business trip, but then misfortune struck her father. He was working on site when he slipped and fell from a height, resulting in lasting damage to his leg. After losing his wife, he had been suffering from sleepless nights filled with deep sadness. With the fatigue from caring for his wife compounded by sleep deprivation, his attention wandered, leading to the accident. Jules blamed herself for pushing him too hard. This prompted Jules to help with household chores by visiting her father's home after work and on weekends. At one point, she even considered giving up living alone and moving back home. But her father, considering Jules's commute, opposed the idea. Ultimately, Jules continued to commute to her parents' home for these past 4 years. She was promoted to supervisor and took on new responsibilities as a project leader. Despite being busy and tired from work, Jules always put her father's needs before her own. Taking on her job, the household chores, and her father's care alone must have been incredibly hard. Continuing in this state to the point of exhaustion, it seems the stress led to her bouts of dizziness. I never would have guessed from Jules's usually bright smile that she was dealing with so much. I felt ashamed that, despite being childhood friends, I didn't really understand her struggles. At the same time, I realized I couldn't just leave things as they were. I needed to do something for both Jules and her father. I thought I needed to see her father as soon as possible. After leaving Jules's hospital room, I called him and arranged to visit him the next day. The following day, after work, I headed to his house. I had told him we'd have dinner together, so I asked in advance about his favorite dishes and picked up some takeout from a local deli. As soon as he saw me, he greeted me with a broad smile and said, "You've grown up so much." It had been decades since we last met face to face, and although I felt nostalgic entering the house where I used to play almost every day, it felt almost like coming home. While we nibbled on the foods, we chatted about various things. But the conversation soon turned to Jules. I wonder if I pushed her too hard. He was blaming himself, too. He talked about how Jules had always been a kind and hardworking child and that hadn't changed, especially after her mother's death. She had been even more concerned about him. Despite knowing he shouldn't rely too much on her kindness. He admitted that he might have been leaning on her a bit too much since he was happy about her visits. He hadn't expected to feel so weakened by his wife's passing and felt pathetic for it, he said with a slump in his shoulders. He's a very kind-hearted man. As a child, when my parents were busy, he would play games with us or take Jules and me on day trips. While it might sound overstated to say I wanted to repay a kindness, I did want to help him feel better, even just a little. As I was thinking about how to brighten the conversation, I remembered that we used to play chess together. "Didn't you like playing chess?" I asked. His eyes lit up as he responded, "Oh. How about a game for old time's sake?" We then set up a game of chess. Although he mentioned it had been a while, he was still quite skilled, and I struggled to keep up. I lost quite easily. During the game, we talked about hobbies. And when he learned that my current hobby was fishing, he reminisced, "I used to fish a lot before I had a family." And mentioned wanting to try it again. Since his injury, he hadn't been out much. Maybe going fishing could lift his spirits a bit. "Let's go together once Jules is out of the hospital and feeling better," I suggested, making plans to go fishing with him. Jules's diagnostic stay in the hospital lasted a week. Thankfully, no diseases other than Meniere's disease were found. And she was advised not to overdo it upon discharge. Jules, more concerned about her father than herself, visited her home immediately after being discharged. Knowing she was going to visit, I offered to drive her and take the opportunity to see her father too. As soon as Jules and her father saw each other, they said "I'm sorry," truly showing how much they cared for each other. "I brought this for you." Hoping to change the atmosphere a bit, I spoke up. "Oh. Thank you, is it alright to bring 3 books? Jules leaned in to take a closer look at the books. Ha! A special feature on sea fishing? Books about fishing? We're planning to go fishing sometime, Scott and I, he responded. Hearing this, Jules exclaimed in surprise, when did you two get so close? In fact, besides the day we had reunited after a long time, I had visited him 2 more times. Jules knew I had been dropping off food for him, but she had no idea we had become close enough to make plans to hang out together. Can we match up again today? I hate to keep losing, I joked. Sure, but I won't go easy on you, he replied with a chuckle. No, please go easy on me. I laughed. He seemed quietly pleased as he pulled out the chessboard. He looks happy. He finally smiled. Jules muttered under her breath, almost to herself. I glanced over at Jules and saw her smiling through tears. From then on, I made up excuses about wanting to play chess or talk about fishing to visit her father. It wasn't that I felt obligated. I genuinely enjoyed having a hobby partner. When we met on weekends, I would invite his father to go shopping with me, helping him buy household necessities and stock up on groceries for several days. No matter where we went, we always ended up talking about our hobbies, and it was simply a lot of fun. Hey, it seems like you two are going out together every week, doesn't it? Jules asked with a smile during a lunch break at work. Look at this. Jules showed me the messages she exchanged with her father and teased, you guys went out last week and the week before that too, didn't you? We just click, we have a great time. I explained, and Jules chuckled softly. Hey Scott, thank you. What's this all of a sudden? I felt a bit embarrassed. Well, just being next to Jules made my heart race anyway. Though she was my first love, the feelings I held as a child were clearly different now. Beyond simply liking her, I naturally developed a desire to make her happy. I wanted to protect Jules's smile. What's this? Both of you coming together is quite rare. One Sunday when Jules and I went to visit him. We have something to tell you. I've started dating Julie, and I wanted to ask for your permission. As I solemnly began to speak, both Jules and her father suddenly burst into laughter with a chuckle in the middle of my speech. Apparently, as they heard me formally address her as Julie, it hit a funny nerve, and they both burst into laughter. There's no need for permission, Scott. I'd be happy. You're like a friend or even a son to me already, he said, making me feel relieved. I had approached Jules with the intention of marriage in mind. When she said yes, I was overjoyed. It turns out Jules had always seen me as something like a younger brother. But one day, seeing me having a great time talking with her father, she suddenly thought, I might marry this man. A few days later, I confessed my feelings to her. Life is full of surprises, Jules said with a laugh. 5 years later. Now, I no longer call her by Jules, but simply as Julie. And her father is now my father-in-law. And now we're living happily and noisily as a family of 5, with our 2-year-old son and our newborn daughter. A year after my confession, we got married. With the marriage, we decided to live together in Julie's family home. This cohabitation was actually encouraged by my own family as well. When I was seriously considering marriage, I realized my own dependence. The idea of becoming a son-in-law and living with my wife's family seemed natural because my much older brother had always taken care of our parents and had told me from a young age that he would handle everything. When I decided to become a family with Julie and my father-in-law, I felt not only joy but also a sense of responsibility. It was a commitment I decided I would uphold. I realized then that my brother had been carrying this responsibility all along. In the house my brother built, there are rooms prepared for our parents, anticipating that they might live there someday. I ask you to take good care of them, I said in front of my parents and brother. Leave them to me. My brother replied, tapping me on the shoulder. Scott has really grown up. Take good care of Julie and your father-in-law. Cherish them. My family responded. It was with their support that I was able to commit to making Julie and my father-in-law happy. I'll never forget this feeling. I will always protect the laughter of our children, and the smiles of Julie and my father-in-law. Hey! What are you going to do about this? I hurried toward the sound of the voice. When I got there, I saw an angry woman and my confused younger brother, Shawn. In Shawn's hand was a mop, while the woman's suit shoulder was wet and stained. Seeing this woman dressed in an obviously expensive and classy suit, my spine chilled. It turned out this woman was Michelle, the president's daughter. What happened? I got dirty from the mop. I did say I was passing by. Michelle was speaking so fervently that Shawn was completely petrified by her intensity. I quickly apologized. Michelle, I sincerely apologize. This is my brother, Shawn. He has a hearing disability, and I think he didn't hear you. Shawn. Michelle said this and then bowed her head. I'll pay for the cleaning. As I reached for my wallet, a tear fell from Michelle's eyes as she looked up. Her tear made both Shawn and I flustered. Shawn also desperately tried to say something. You don't need to pay for the cleaning, she said, wiped her tears, and ran off. A few hours later, we were called into the president's office. My name is Kyle. After graduating from college, I have been working at an IT company for 5 years, now at the age of 27. I have a younger brother, 4 years my junior. His name is Shawn. He started working as a janitor at our company twice a week this September. Shawn, the HR department called. Noticing that he didn't react to my voice at all, I tapped him on the shoulder. As he slowly turned around, I spoke near his ear. HR called for you. They said it's a good time to come down, I told him near his ear. Thank you. Shawn put down his cleaning supplies and went downstairs. He seems more alive here than at home. I watched his back with relief as he left. Shawn was involved in a car accident in the summer of his senior year of high school. He broke both legs, but they healed completely with rehabilitation. However, his hearing loss was permanent. Shawn's hearing is such that he can barely hear if someone speaks right next to his ear. Whether this is considered lucky or not varies by person, but at least our whole family was quite shocked. Why did it have to be Shawn? I'd take his place if I could, our parents especially took it hard. Trying to cheer up our parents, or perhaps out of his natural disposition, he always acted cheerfully. It's gotten hard to hear, but I can hear, so it's okay. It will make things like getting a job harder, but I'll manage. Blessed with supportive friends and teachers, Shawn successfully graduated high school. But he didn't go on to college. Just give me some time. I'll figure out what I can do. So after graduating high school, he spent some time learning sign language and drawing, his favorite hobby. He seemed to be pondering, but he never consulted his family about it. So we quietly watched as he figured out his future. A year later, it seemed Shawn had finally found his path. I'm going to be an illustrator. There are people who like my drawings. It seems that Shawn had been regularly uploading pictures he drew as a hobby online. People who liked his drawings appeared, and he began receiving requests for illustrations. Since we communicate mostly via email, I think I can manage just fine despite my hearing loss, he said. He seemed really happy to be accepted with his condition. Just give it your best shot. I'm also good with computers, so don't hesitate to ask for help if you need it. I told him as I worked at an IT company. Shawn gave me a big smile in response. Since then, he has been doing various freelance jobs as an illustrator, like advertisements and company logo design. While he wasn't making enough to live on his own, it was sufficient to live comfortably at home with our parents. However, one day, Shawn emailed me. Kyle, do you know of any work I might be able to do? Did you get tired of drawing? No. I plan to continue as an illustrator. But, I want a stable income. All of Shawn's friends had gone to college after high school. Shawn worked as an illustrator while his friends went to college. Until last year, his student friends respected him as a self-employed individual, and Shawn felt good about their relationships. However, recently, when he met with his friends who had just started working, they discussed their first salaries. Shawn didn't disclose his earnings, but he realized that his monthly income was significantly lower than his friends who were new to the workforce. Since his illustration work is one-shot, his income varies each month, and the best he does is about $1,200 a month. It can't be helped. Being an employee working at a company is totally different from being self-employed. I always respect you, Shawn. For working hard at something you love, I said. It was clear Shawn struggled due to his hearing loss. However, I deliberately didn't mention his disability. If I'm only earning this much after a few years, I guess that's the limit of my talents. I feel bad having to rely on our parents. Everyone gave their parents gifts with their first paycheck. I also want to earn enough to make our parents feel secure and to give them something nice, he said. So, he was looking for a job that could provide a stable income in addition to his illustration work. Shawn's feelings came through loud and clear. And then it clicked. There is a job as a janitor available. I had recently heard from a colleague that our company was hiring janitors under the Disability Employment Scheme. The position is open for the disabled. Are you okay with that? When I hesitated slightly, Shawn laughed. I've long accepted my disability. Plus, being under that scheme means people will be aware of my condition up front, which makes things easier for me. Shawn's nonchalant response put me at ease. I immediately went to talk to the HR department, and Shawn's employment was swiftly arranged. Now, it has been 6 months since he started working at our company. Apart from his hearing difficulties, Shawn is no different from the rest of us. His meticulousness has made a positive impact, and his work has been well received. Also, since my colleagues treat Shawn kindly, he enjoys his work and looks lively. One day, as I was returning from a meeting room, I heard a woman's shrill voice. Hey! What are you going to do about this? I rushed toward the sound of the voice. When I arrived, I saw an angry woman and a confused-looking Shawn. Shawn was holding a mop, while the woman's suit shoulder was wet and stained. Seeing the woman in such an expensive and classy suit made me freeze. It turned out to be Michelle, the president's daughter. What happened? This person dirted it with the mop. I did say I was passing behind. Startled by Michelle's forceful manner, Shawn was completely frozen. It was so unlike the usually quiet Michelle to be this upset. I hurriedly apologized. Michelle, I'm terribly sorry. This is my brother Shawn. He has a hearing disability and probably didn't hear you, I explained. Shawn. Yes, I'm Kyle from the systems department. I'll definitely cover the cleaning costs, so please forgive this issue. How long has Shawn had hearing difficulties? About 5 years now. How long has he been working here? He started about 6 months ago. Did he have any other jobs before this? He's still working from home as an illustrator. Here, he works twice a week under a contract. I answered on behalf of Shawn, who couldn't quite grasp Michelle's rapid speech. So drawing is his main profession. Michelle said this and then looked down. But he's also really dedicated to his job here. I couldn't help but wonder if she thought he wasn't serious about his job here because it wasn't his main profession. I felt compelled to defend Shawn's honor. Michelle, I am truly sorry. I'm going to pay the cleaning cost. As I said this and started to pull out my wallet, a tear rolled down Michelle's face as she looked up. Her tears panicked both Shawn and me. Shawn also tried desperately to convey something. You don't need to pay for the cleaning, she said, wiped her tears, and then ran off. Kyle, what did she say? Shawn, who couldn't catch the conversation, looked worried. I moved closer and spoke slowly into his ear. She said she doesn't need the cleaning money. She was also concerned about how long you've been working here. Do you think she'll report my mistake? Shawn looked worried. Unable to say anything, I could only look down. Actually, she's the president's daughter. What? Shawn was at a loss for words. I think she's still a college student, but she comes here occasionally for some business with Mr. Sanders. She's usually reserved but always polite. And she's well regarded. I was also surprised to see her so emotionally exposed. Hearing this, Shawn held his head. I'll make sure to pay the cleaning costs. It's a mistake anyone could make, so don't worry about it. Just be more careful next time. I was also nervous about how Michelle would respond, but I tried to cheer up a brooding Shawn. Due to another appointment, I had to leave Shawn there. Soon after, an email from Mr. Sanders came to me. Kyle, please come to the president's office at 2 p.m. with your brother. That was all it said. But I immediately knew it was about the earlier incident, and I couldn't help but tremble. Michelle must have told her father. But since it was entirely Shawn's fault, there was nothing to be done. Shawn had just started gaining confidence and working outside. I just hoped he wouldn't get fired. In the morning, Shawn meticulously groomed himself and headed to work with enthusiasm. He communicated happily with my colleagues. Having avoided social interactions due to his hearing loss, he had grown remarkably in these past few months. I absolutely wanted to avoid him losing his newfound confidence. "Kyle, sorry. It's my fault that you got called in too." As I headed to the lobby where I was meeting Shawn, he sat there looking nervous. "It's okay. We're just going to have a talk." I tried to hide my own anxiety and encouraged him as we headed to the president's office. "Excuse me, this is Kyle." Who came out was Mr. Sanders himself. "Sorry to call you like this." "Please, come in," he said with a kind smile, which took both Shawn and me by surprise. "Nice to meet you, I'm John Sanders." The president greeted Shawn slowly, using both sign language and voice. "Ah, nice to meet you. I'm Shawn." Surprised, Shawn also greeted Mr. Sanders, following his lead. "Mr. Sanders, you know sign language." I couldn't hide my surprise, and Mr. Sanders showed a slightly sad expression. "Well, just a little. I haven't used it for a while, so I've forgotten quite a bit," he said as he ushered us into the room. I wondered what he meant by not having used it for a while. As I followed Mr. Sanders into the room, there stood Michelle. She was wearing different clothes from the suit she had on earlier. "Michelle, we are sorry for. I'm the one who should apologize. It was a precious suit my mother bought for me, and I lost my composure." Before we could apologize, Michelle apologized first. "Shawn, I'm really sorry for shouting at you suddenly. I'm ashamed to admit that I had a prejudice that everyone in the company has no disabilities." Michelle, like Mr. Sanders, turned to Shawn and communicated in both sign language and voice. Michelle can also use sign language. I felt relieved, believing these two would truly understand Shawn. "No, it was entirely my fault earlier. I'll be more careful, so please give me another chance." Shawn deeply apologized. Then, Michelle took out a large framed picture from her bag. "Shawn, did you draw this?" When she turned the frame around, it revealed a painting of Michelle in a uniform, smiling closely with another woman. The artwork was done in a gentle touch, surrounded by colorful flowers. The gentle touch of the drawing conveyed their happiness. Shawn was taken aback. "From that time?" "Yes. 4 years ago, we met at Potomac Park. My mother couldn't go out after that day, but this drawing brightened up her hospital room. She looked at it happily every day," Michelle said with tears in her voice. Noticing I was lost, Mr. Sanders explained in both sign language and voice. Mr. Sanders' wife, Elizabeth, was diagnosed with tongue cancer 7 years ago and had her entire tongue surgically removed. Upon hearing that the cancer required the complete removal of her tongue, both Mr. Sanders and Michelle were deeply shocked. But Elizabeth herself was different. "I have plenty of time, and I'll learn sign language. I want to have lots of fun conversations with you." Elizabeth, always cheerful, gave them strength to face forward. To understand my wife's sign language, both Michelle and I learned desperately. Being busy learning sign language helped us avoid worrying about the inevitable. I think that was probably my wife's intention. I followed his gaze to a photo of the 3 family members displayed in the room. We had some peaceful years, but 5 years ago, the cancer metastasized. From there, Elizabeth's condition rapidly worsened, and she had been hospitalized ever since. Continuing in both sign language and voice, Michelle said, "In the spring, my mother had some good days, so she got permission to go out if it was near the hospital." Michelle took her flower-loving mother Elizabeth in a wheelchair for a walk to Potomac Park near the hospital. "That's where we met Shawn, who was painting there." Michelle smiled gently at Shawn. According to Michelle, Elizabeth, sitting on a bench, showed interest in Shawn, who was drawing flowers, and approached him using sign language. I thought he would ignore her for sure, but to our surprise, Shawn responded in sign language. Shawn shyly smiled. "I was feeling pretty desperate back then. Everyone around me seemed to be enjoying college and looking forward to a bright future. I, being hard of hearing, wondered what was in store for me. I couldn't talk to anyone, felt uncomfortable at home, and just killed time alone in the park." So when someone approached me with a smile and started talking in sign language, I was simply overjoyed. It's hard to believe that Shawn, who always tried to act cheerful in front of us, felt this way. It made my heart ache. Michelle continued to look at Shawn with a kind gaze. When you responded in sign language, my mom was really happy. As we talked, you started to draw a picture of us. During their walk in the park, Shawn quickly sketched a picture of the two of them. It was because your relationship seemed so wonderful. Shawn realized that Elizabeth was in a much more serious condition than himself. But seeing Elizabeth living her life to the fullest, happily smiling next to Michelle, gave him a sense of salvation. When we were leaving, you gave us this picture. Both my mom and I were moved. Every time I look at this picture, I can recall those happy moments. Michelle said. Elizabeth passed away 2 weeks later. Thanks to your drawing, my mother was able to spend her time in the hospital room calmly and happily. Michelle looked at the painting with a nostalgic and cheerful expression. By the way, how did you know my name? Shawn asked. When they first met in the park, they had asked for his name, but he was too embarrassed to tell them. Michelle replied apologetically. Actually, I saw your name written on your bicycle when we were saying goodbye. Ah, I see. Shawn said with a bashful smile. It was just a hobby sketch, and back then, I lacked the courage to introduce myself. I even wished I could be someone else. But now, hearing your story, I've started to like myself a little more. Shawn said, smiling at Michelle. Did you wear a suit today to go somewhere? I asked. Earlier, she had mentioned it was an important suit that she got from her mother. Yes, actually, I had a job interview. Oh. How did the interview go? It wasn't before the interview, was it? I anxiously awaited Michelle's reply. Michelle laughed and said, the interview didn't go well. It was with my top choice publishing house, but they kept asking about my father. Mr. Sanders shrugged apologetically. Michelle loves to write and dreams of publishing her own book someday. She was aiming for a publishing house, but the company she interviewed with today hardly let her speak properly. How long do you plan to work before quitting? This is not a suitable place for the boss's daughter. Even though it's a different industry. We don't want to be targeted by your father. It seemed no one really listened to Michelle's feelings. I came here to complain that I didn't choose to be born as the daughter of a president, she said. And just as she was heading to the president's office, she was inadvertently dirted by Shawn with a mop. If you hadn't stopped me with that mop, I would have said something terrible to my father, she said. Thanks to the mop, her anger towards her father disappeared, and knowing Shawn's true identity brought back precious memories with her mother. It's truly a strange twist of fate. It must have been my mother, wanting me to meet you so that I could pursue what I love. Both Shawn and I looked at each other, confused by what Michelle meant. What do you mean? I asked. Michelle looked straight at Shawn and said, Shawn, would you like to work with me? Surprised by Michelle's sudden proposal, his eyes widened. Shawn, you're still doing illustration work, right? When Michelle asked him a question, Shawn turned to look at me. I mentioned it earlier when she asked. Shawn faced Michelle again and nodded shyly. Would you be interested in becoming a children's book author? I've already written a few stories for children's books. But I'm not quite satisfied with the illustrations I do myself. Michelle quickly took out her laptop and showed him the incomplete manuscript of her book, with spaces left blank for illustrations. It seems the picture book Michelle wants to create is intended for adults, featuring more text than usual. She wants to create a picture book that can be read in about 15 minutes and leaves the reader feeling warm inside. Didn't your parents read you a bedtime story when you were little? I loved that time. It helped me end my day on a happy note, she explained. Michelle thought it would be wonderful if adults could also end their days by escaping into the world of a picture book. Hearing Michelle's thoughts warmed my heart. Shawn, why don't you give it a try? I encouraged him. Shawn remained silent for a while as he stared at the laptop screen, but eventually, he looked up and said, Your writing is wonderful. I'm not sure if my drawings will match your words, but I'd like to try. Hearing Shawn's response, her face lit up. Thank you. I'm looking forward to working with you, she said enthusiastically. The two of them shook hands firmly. Watching this, I caught Mr. Sanders' eye, and we both squinted in approval. He will be fine. My wife also said so. Mr. Sanders whispered to me. Eh? What did your wife say? Ah. I'll tell you about it some other time. Mr. Sanders' words piqued my curiosity, but it seems he isn't ready to share more at this moment. Putting that aside, I hoped that their picture book would come together successfully. After that, Shawn began to go to meetings with Michelle frequently. Going to a meeting now? Yeah. It's more efficient to draw while getting feedback, he replied. It was already dark outside. I'll drive you there. Make sure to call me when you're heading back. I'll come pick you up, I insisted. The darkness posed risks, especially for Shawn, who was hard of hearing. Seeing my concern, Shawn gave a wry smile but gratefully said, "Thank you." During the drive, Shawn happily shared how Michelle's writing touched his heart and how her words naturally inspired his illustrations. Occasionally, Michelle would also share trivial stories about her interactions with her father, Mr. Sanders. Working with Michelle, I realized that Shawn was discovering new aspects of himself. I might be back late, so I'll go home on my own, Shawn said, considering my schedule. That's fine. I have plenty of things to do myself. Seeing you work hard motivates me too, I reassured him. Hearing this, Shawn smiled happily. Thank you. I'll get in touch later, he said, stepping out of the car with a bounce in his step. Seeing Shawn's excited demeanor made me genuinely happy. Knowing the hardships he once hid from us, I now wanted nothing more than for Shawn to find true happiness and planned to support him wholeheartedly. Of course, he continued his job as a janitor as usual. The lights in his room stayed on late into the night, and sometimes he would stumble out in the mornings, bleary-eyed. But our parents simply watched over him without comment. 3 months later, their first book was completed. The protagonist of the book was Michelle's mother, Elizabeth. Despite being diagnosed with cancer, Elizabeth never gave up on life and remained as bright as the sun. If my family cries because of me, I'll make them laugh that much harder. Speak what you want to do today, and make it happen. This is the story of Elizabeth's way of life. Michelle told me that it's a piece of fiction very close to nonfiction. In the story, Elizabeth meets a young man after being given a month to live. A young man with despair in his eyes, even though he had no terminal diagnosis. When she spoke to him in sign language, he responded in kind. A secret conversation that no one else could understand, just between the two of them. Elizabeth opened up to the young man about her fear of death for the first time. I always want my loved ones to be smiling, so I make it a point to smile every day. But I wonder how sad my family will be when I'm gone. When they are grieving, I won't be able to be by their side anymore. That's what scares me. Is there a way to keep everyone happy? The young man thought for a moment, then opened his sketchbook. He drew fervently, immersed in his art. Seeing his serious profile, Elizabeth smiled. She thought, I want this person to live life for myself. As a gentle ray of sunlight beckoned sleep, the young man stopped his hand. He hesitated slightly but then showed her the sketchbook. Wow, it's beautiful. There, Elizabeth was depicted with a gentle smile. She was surrounded by flowers, looking very happy. Thank you for drawing me so beautifully. When my family sees this, they will surely smile. And from above, I can feel happy watching them. Elizabeth expressed her gratitude. The young man blushed shyly. Elizabeth stood in front of him. Really, thank you so much, she said, and handed him a bookmark made from a pressed cherry blossom petal. I'd be happy if you could keep this in my stead. And every spring, look up at the cherry trees for me. I'm sure you'll feel how wonderful it is to be alive, she told him. The young man silently accepted the bookmark. Elizabeth walked away with a bright smile. The young man watched her figure disappear into the distance. Since that day, he often returned to the place where they had met, but he never saw her again. Because Elizabeth had already departed for the skies. When spring came, the young man noticed the bookmark Elizabeth had given him. Prompted by a gentle breeze, he went to the place where they had met. It was a path lined with cherry trees, and cherry blossoms fluttered in the air. The young man looked up at the cherry tree and took a deep breath. A father and daughter, it seemed, approached from the other direction. The daughter held a picture frame carefully. "Mom, the cherry blossoms are dancing," she said. "We got to see them as a family of 3 this year," the father replied. The daughter raised the picture frame high. The young man gasped. In the frame was undoubtedly the portrait of Elizabeth he had drawn. As the two passed by, the young man murmured as he watched them go, "I will live to the fullest." My face was a mess of tears after reading the picture book. "How was it?" "It's wonderful. I'm sure Elizabeth would be very pleased." Michelle replied with a smile. Shawn's illustrations complemented Michelle's writing beautifully, resulting in a warm and beautiful picture book. What moved me the most was that the portrait of Elizabeth in the book was exactly the one Shawn had genuinely gifted. "This is a picture book that only you could have created," I told him. Shawn blushed and nodded. Months later, the picture book was successfully published and became a small talk of the town. Now, feeling fulfilled, Michelle and Shawn were already working on their next project. Shawn, who used to be hindered by his disability, was no longer that person. He was thoroughly enjoying each day. One day, during lunch break, I happened to meet Mr. Sanders outside and asked him, "By the way, Mr. Sanders, what did your wife say?" I had been curious about his comment when Michelle invited Shawn to create the picture book, saying, "He will be fine." My wife also said so. My wife said that Michelle's writing and Shawn's drawings share the same warmth. She must have known that they would end up like this. Now, she's surely watching them from above and is very happy. Mr. Sanders replied, squinting up at the sky. I followed his gaze upwards. From somewhere, a cherry blossom petal fluttered down gently.